Again, welcome. We'll go through the second video, which will look at a couple of sheets and explain some characteristics of the sheet which I see as strong and useful. Again, looking at the second tab of this Excel worksheet, we can see things are clearly labelled. Looking at the top, we can actually see that we've got the task ID number. These task ID number will of course be identical to the task ID numbers that will be in Microsoft Project. We have our task names going from start all the way to the end. If we scroll down very quickly, we'll actually find that when we get down to the end, we have finished and we've got 89 tasks, which is plenty of tasks. We've also got the predecessors. So as we remember, the predecessors, we developed this after we've done our initial work breakdown structure. Then we looked at the different tasks and we established what the predecessors are, and we have a short justification on the side. The reason for having the justification is that it's not just one person who's looked at this. It means everybody in the project team have gone through, ticked off the justification, feel this makes sense from a logical point of view. The key problem with doing this early, of course, is that as we do additional tasks which involve risk assessment, communication plan, the FMEA, we may find that there are additional tasks that we actually need to include. These additional tasks need to be entered into either this initial predecessor file, or another tab can be created later, which is simply a copy and paste. There's a bit of a logic problem one way or another, but both work okay. Now the key task is that once you establish the predecessors in this sheet initially and you add additional tasks, of course the predecessors may change. In other words, not themselves, but their task ID number may actually change. So this has to be updated. You may do this simply by having a dynamic linkage to these task ID in another Excel sheet that you are working on, but on here we just want to see what's been done. Now, one thing that's a neat way of doing this, which we can see in this sheet, is that the additional activities added from a risk assessment and communication plan are clearly highlighted, and any supporting rationale for that is also provided on the side. We can see this in the yellow text, so that makes it quite clear that this is all being done. We look through the logic of this and things seem to make sense. Occasionally when you do your initial set of activities and predecessors, you realize that the initial order is just a bit clunky in terms of predecessors, and you may need to move the order around a little bit, but you just try to get a sheet that looks reasonably logical in terms of the sequences of numbers and the rationales. So before we move on to the next section, which is really a bundle of risk assessment, communication plan and the FMEA, it's important to realize that you will come back to this, and that these figures that you've got here in terms of the predecessors will be what you'll be putting into Microsoft Project, and you can see the task ID will correspond to what's in Microsoft Project. You can see in this case, if you look carefully, you can see the text, the predecessor text, and the task name is actually in dark green, which means that's been moved across into Microsoft Project.